So this is continuing on with our skeletal series for Somso models. We are going to recognize all of the bones of the skeletal system that we can clearly see without covering from muscles. I'll also touch on some of the bony markers that we might be able to see that belong to those bones. So beginning on this anterior portion, we can recognize the frontal bone of the skull. Then just posterior to that, the parietal bone is right here. On this posterior side, we can actually recognize the occipital bone down here. Then coming back over to the side here, we have the temporal bone that is obscured by muscle in this portion, but we can actually see this portion of the temporal bone, and that is the zygomatic arch of the temporal bone right there. That would be making contact up here with the zygomatic bone. Then looking to this anterior portion of the skull, we have right here the maxilla, and down inferior to the maxilla is the mandible, which is partially dissected off here, but we can also see the mandible right there as well. Then out here we can recognize the nasal bone. So nasal bone is shown right there. Moving away from the skull, I can also see the clavicle. So this is what we recognize as the clavicle. You may have thought of it as the collarbone before you took this class. Here's the clavicle. And that is the only bone that articulates with the axial skeleton. So we're coming out to the appendicular skeleton and the upper limb. And this bone is one of the bones that make up the pectoral girdle. And this is going to come out and articulate with the scapula. So out here we see the scapula. And I'm just going to rotate this model around. And here we can actually see a prominent marker of the scapula. So this is called the spine of the scapula. And this would come all the way out to this portion of the scapula that reaches out to the clavicle called the acromion, right there. So just kind of coming back and looking at those same bones, here is going to be the spine of the scapula coming out to the acromion, and that's going to be what articulates with the clavicle right at that point right there. Then we can also, if we remove this, we can see the sternum right here. And then we can also recognize some of the ribs. So back with the axial skeleton for the sternum and those ribs that we can view there.